Hello, welcome to the tutorial on harmonizing melodies that tonicize either 3 or 5. As with the previous tutorial on harmonizing sequential melodies, the first thing you need to do is figure out what key you're in. So again, look at the key signature that limits the possibilities. 2 sharps for all of these melodies means that it's going to begin either in D major or B minor. But now that we have the wrinkle of possibly tonicizing new key, that means that if it's in, it could be, if it starts in B minor, it could cadence again. It could cadence in the key of the relative major, D major, or if it's in D major at the beginning, it could move to the key of A major. So you have these 3 possibilities. So let's listen to first melody. Okay, so the first 2 bars have a big clue, the A sharp. That clearly indicates B minor. So the progression itself, the melody looks like it follows a descending third pattern. It does, in fact. So at least the first 3 chords can be harmonized 1 to 5, like the Pachelbel bass, 1 to 5 to 6, or even the descending 5-6, 1 to 5-6 to a 6 chord. Problem is, it's got to lead to a 5 chord for this T. And 6 to 5 is, while possible, a tricky progression, and it cannot be written in following the sequential pattern. So let's just do something much, much simpler. About just a simple expansion of 1. 1, do, ti, do, sol, 1 to 5-6 to 1 to a 5, as if it were a half cadence. It sort of is a little half cadence anyway. The other possibility is another simple expansion of 1. If you have me, re, do moving in the upper melody, you can have do, re, mi moving in the bass. 1 to 7-6 to a 1-6, again leading to a 5. So this is a simple melody, a simple harmonization that you would have studied even last spring in Music 78. Now, what happens after that is, it seems sequential. It seems to move up a third. In fact, it is a bit of a sequence, and in fact can be treated exactly like a sequence. That is, you can harmonize this melody up a third. Let's try that. Sorry. It's part of it. Let's listen to that and see what it sounds like. And I think it's easy to tell, and I hope you can tell, that tonicizes the relative major when you move it up a third. When a melody that's in the minor is transposed up a third, it fits in the relative major, and that's a very common technique for tonicizing 3. So be on the lookout for that. The next little melody now, it seems the beginning, do, me, re, do, do, seems to be clearly in the key of B minor. And it's also a sequential passage that moves down a second. So let's use our descending 5th progression. Whoops. One, 4, 7, 3, 6, 2. Now this seems, if let's just be stubborn and stay in the key, try to stay in the key of B minor. In fact, you can. It ends on May in the key of B minor. But you still need a 5 to 1 if it's going to be a true cadence. So we need a re, sol, do, so we need to quicken our cadence here. So if that happens, I'll just put in a little tenor here with a raised. Let's even put in a little seventh there to make it convincing. Here, let's listen. So. Forgot to put that. Let's listen to this final progression. It's fairly convincing. However, I think it's even more characteristic to hear this not as La Sol Fa Me, but Fa Mi Re Do in the key of D. And in that case, we don't have to quicken our harmonic progression. We can just move straight to a 5 chord. So we can smooth it out a bit. If you want to move to a 1, to a 4/6, to a 7, to a 3/6, to a 6 in the key of B minor. But now, if you think in the key of D, it becomes a straight 4 chord, moving to a 5/7. So let's just take note of this pivot. 4 or 6 in the key of B, but also the key of D, 4. So that's the pivot. Then of course 5 to 1. And the progression is smoother. Of course, you're still just moving. Basic harmonic motion is dotted quarters. All right, so let's look at one more melody. Those two were minors. Let's listen to this one. Well, here you can already see we have a descending, in D major, we have a descending second pattern. In fact, it's the exact same melody that you listened to in the last tutorial on harmonizing sequential melodies. So, let's listen. Okay. So the first cadence is a straightforward PAC or IAC in the key of D major. So the easiest way to detect a melody is if that's tonicizing a new key is if there's a chromatic alteration. So if instead of it moving down to the PAC, you introduced a G sharp and then you just stayed in on that A, then this would indicate T to Do, or Re, T, Do, and that would imply a 5 chord in the key of A, moving to a 1 in the key of A. Let's back up this 5 and this 1. And in which case, since that's unambiguously in the key of D, let's put that down. Actually, let's take all of these, move them down. I like the original key to be lower. Now treat this as a new key of A. Now this chord becomes pivot, 6 in the key of D major. But now 2 in the key of A. So that's the pivot. And this sequential pattern, descending fifth sequential pattern, is ideal for this moving to another key, especially moving to the key of the dominant. Just listen to that. Okay, so that G sharp is a clear signal that you're in the key of A. But let's say you have, let's keep going with this melody. There's no G sharp. So how do I know if I've moved to another key? Well, here you have, there's an alteration to the sequential pattern. Instead of la, do, ti, la, it's la, re, do, ti, la, sol, which can easily be interpreted as, really should be interpreted as, re, sol, fa, mi, re, do. In that case, you should harmonize that as a PAC in a new key. So let's use the same progression. Let's keep it in the key of it, interpret that in the key of D major. So, but we've got a new key going on here. So let's first get the cadence. That shouldn't be too problematic. Mi, re, do here would seem to imply a cadential 6/4. But that is going, let's just look a little bit at that. Let's explore that just a second. So if it's a cadential 6/4, it's got to be an E. There's the cadence there, the key of A. So what am I going to lead to that? Well, I have to have, ideally I would have a dominant prep chord. If I follow the pitch that the sequential pattern leads me to, it's a B. But the problem is if I put a B here, let's just put it in there, it doesn't fit with what's implied here in this fourth leap. That's fine if it's a third leap, but if it's a fourth leap, then that implies a 6/4 chord, and 6/4 chord is not the place for a 6/4 chord. In fact, if you look at the fourth leap, that outlines the pitches of a stable triad, but it's a triad on E, which is the 5 chord. So let's treat that as a 1/6 in the, or 5/6 in the key of A. Let's put a G sharp in the bass, and in which case that's going to lead to a 1, and then I can simply have 5 on the 8th note. So let's back up then. That would make this chord my pivot. 3/6 in the key of D. In the key of A, that would be a 6/6. Let's listen to that. So the key here, as always, is to first figure out where your cadence is and make sure you have a solid conventional cadence, root position 5 to a 1. And you can start the progression in the original key and move as characteristic and conventionally as you want to in that key. But then there will become a moment where you need to move from one to the other, and that's where you look for the pivot. So this chord here, which is not particularly characteristic of the diatonic progressions except for sequential patterns, but of course you're right in the middle of a sequential pattern, and that always makes the cadence smooth, or the transition smooth. Okay, that is the tutorial on harmonizing melodies at tone size 3 and 5.